I am here with Ann Gill with Stearns County Abstract. Hi, Ann.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So if you have done a closing with me, there's a great chance that you've seen Ann in the past because you have been my top closer pretty much since the day I started real estate.
Thank you.
And that goes back a long time.
Yes.
But tell us what happens in a closing. Like what chain of when a buyer buys a house, this is their last stop before they get the keys to the house. Okay. So tell us what happens during a closing.
Okay, so during a closing, everybody comes in, we all sit down at the table, and of course we have a big file with all your documents and everything in it, but once you get to the closing table, my job here, Stearns County Abstract, is to go through all the closing documents with the customer, make sure they understand the loan documents that they're signing, what their payments are, when their first payment is due, all that, just so they understand everything.
And most of those documents come from the lender.
Yes,
correct?
Most come from the lender. We just have a few documents that they have to sign, but most documents are supplied to us from the lender.
Okay.
And we do what's called the closing protection letter, where we, ensure the closing that we're doing the correct paperwork and going through and answering any questions that they have.
What does a buyer need to bring to closing? What do you guys require?
So we require them to bring their picture ID to closing. We have to notarize their signature, so we're required to see that picture ID to make sure they say who they really are. We have to do that, and also the lender needs that because we have to fill in the information off that ID for the lender. Sometimes a customer has to bring money to closing. So we let them know ahead of time if they need to bring a cashier's check to closing, things like that.
Okay. And I also know the title part, like the abstracting the title part. Can you explain what that entails?
Yes. So when you first buy a property, we get the purchase agreement from you. So once we have that purchase agreement, we start right away with doing a title search of the property. So when the title search is done, we have to go back 40 years in the chain of title to make sure everything is clear. We also have an on-staff person here who examines the title to make sure there's no title defects, anything, tax liens, mortgages, judgments, making sure title is clear when the buyer purchases the property. We prepare a commitment based on that search and exam, and that's stating what's out there. That'll give everything. If there's issues, that'll all show up on there, and then it's our job to clear any issues before the closing
Which can get very ugly at times.
Yes, it can. Yes,
it doesn't happen a lot in my experience, but there's
some
that can get.
Yes.
So
you find some doozies.
When a person takes out a mortgage, which most people do, the lender requires them to have title insurance.
Correct.
And is that still required to this day? Okay.
It is.
So a buyer, though, has the option of purchasing a policy for themselves.
Yes. Yep. That's called the owner's title insurance.
Yes. And what does that cover?
That covers a range of things. A lot of times it is in regards to defects in the property. Sometimes there's people that come back and claim an interest in the property, an heir from way in the past stating that we have rights to this property, something like that. Any legal description issues that could have not been caught when we did the transaction.
So for instance, if a husband and wife gets divorced and the wife hasn't been paid off yet.
Sure.
Or one party hasn't been paid off yet.
And
that's the stuff you're looking for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that can come back.
It can. And then we have to clean that up.
Okay.
Yep. It's a one-time premium that you pay, and it's very minimal. But it's a one-time premium until you sell the property. It covers all kinds of things, boundary line disputes, like you said, splitting of property if they did it incorrectly and something didn't get recorded correctly at the county. That's what that stuff covers. So later on, if you go sell your property and we just found there was found to be an issue, we could take care of that.
And there's no charge then to the buyer?
No, there's usually no charge to the buyer, and we have to cover any legal expenses, things like that, to get that all straight and cleared up.
So when you are in the process of doing title work, which happens between a purchase agreement getting accepted and closing. So when you guys are actually doing the title work, I tell my buyers it's behind the scenes stuff is getting done at this point. Do you actually go out to a property and measure the yard?
Yes.
Yep,
we do what's called a plat drawing.
Okay.
Yep, the lender requires that. Cash transactions, we're not required to do that, just because normally on a cash transaction, They're accepting it, the property kind of as is, but yet we don't have to do a plat.
Okay.
The lender requires a plat where we actually go out and measure, making sure the house is in its boundary lines and there's no overlapping or gaps between the neighbors, things like that. Yeah. And we actually draw up where the property is located on the property.
And it's crazy.
In the house
You'll
area.
find out fences are in the wrong property or sheds.
Yes.
People think they're on their property.
They're encroaching the other. Yep. And that's been an issue too before. So. Where a lot of them, we've had luck where they're movable, those movable sheds, where they actually went and moved the shed off of the encroachment.
Anything else you can think of that you would want a buyer or seller to know about this?
We want to make the experience for them very happy and very excited. If they ever have any questions, I always tell them that if you want to give us a call and ask any questions, please feel free to call to go over things with us before closing. Otherwise, if you do want to ask any questions at closing, don't feel like you need to quick get out of here and because there's people waiting. Just ask questions because I want them to leave here knowing everything that they feel comfortable.
You're amazing with that. You're very calm and that's great. But I'll be honest, the clients are just ready to hand over the keys.
I know, that's the best part. They want to get out of here.
The very end of it, they're just, here's your keys to your new house, or you just sold your house. So that's great. But I'm so happy to have you on the title side of things.
Thank you.
Because you make that piece easy.
And you make our job easier too.
It's not something I would want to do. It's your job. So you can keep that and I'll keep doing what I do. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this tonight.
Thank you.
And hopefully people will understand what title, when I say the title work is getting done now.
Maybe they know,
Maybe they know what's going on.
And if they have questions, just call.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you.